Welcome to Let's Talk About Show. Yes, I have lost all of my hair. She just got it cut. So, yeah, this is how it's going to look while we do this. This is going to be fun, guys. Sorry about my phone. I've got it here. I've got my notes written down for the next couple of Beast Morphers episodes. I want to make sure that this goes as smoothly as we can make it. I know we're going to be talking about 4 episodes, but it is the end of Beast Morphers. I have finally, after she's 3, 4, 5 years, however long it's been about 3 years taking me to finish this show. I finally get to at least tell my thoughts, so we can get on with it, get things moving, get things going. Um, so let's go ahead and talk about the next couple of episodes, or the last couple of episodes, I should say. A lot happens in the last, would you say fifth? Yeah, last fifth of this show, last quarter. Yeah, no, it's the last fifth of this show, almost a quarter. Um, so the next episode we have is Fossil Frenzy. Not a lot happens in this episode, or at least in terms of plot. As far as the overarching narrative, the big thing that happens at the end, of course. Oh yeah, and by the way, I meant to bring this up earlier, but I keep forgetting because this show is so old, and I am so late in bringing up this information. But yeah, this is a spoiler review for the end of Power Rangers Beast Morphers. I'm going to be talking about all of the big story beats that happen near the end of the show and what I think about them, because I think a lot of this stuff is done really well. I had seen a few things leading up to, or when this finale came out, that was a little bit concerning. A lot of people were saying this is one of the worst finales of the show, and blah 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 blah. And I did watch these last 4 episodes again, and I can kind of see what the complaints may have been. I would appreciate some comments from you guys. Just kind of let me know uh, what happened here, because I do want to know what people thought of this show, because I do think that Beast Morphers as a whole was pretty good. Some of the stuff, especially in the second season, kind of fell flat for me at the end of uh, the season one. I went on that big rant about continuity and all that stuff, and how it doesn't respect continuity. This we've gotten to the area, like, since we got to grid connection, has been very well tied into continuity. My big problem, of course, is how the show adapts certain other things, and I'll get to it when we get to the end of this episode. But so we have episode 19, Fossil Frenzy. The plot of this episode is that Zoe's brother, who was mentioned in the last episode, or no, it wasn't. It was in the episode where Nate was going to leave with his parents. Golden Opportunity is what it was called. That's right. That's right. It was mentioned by Steele that Zoe's brother is away at college. That's where he is. He's doing long distance or whatever. And so in this episode, we actually see him. He shows up. Mike Reeves. He's got this dino fossil with him. He's also got a broken arm. Um, he goes to meet up with Zoe. She's like, what happened to you?" And he's like, "Well, I got this fossil from a dinosaur that's been undiscovered. It's a velociraptor with sharp teeth like a T-Rex. Calls it the Vulturesaurus. And he injured his arm climbing, what was it, Holland's Peak, I believe is what they say, um, which is supposedly like a very dangerous mountain to climb. This is also one of the more best written episodes, I would say. Every complaint that I thought I would have with how this episode is laid out, they're pretty well at establishing why certain things happen. Because uh, Mike tells Zoe that he wants her to take this to Grid Battle Force, take this fossil, and analyze the DNA and see if there's actually any DNA in the fossil, and make sure that this is a undiscovered dinosaur, or a brand new, newly discovered dinosaur. That this is, dinosaur is completely, wholly new. It's a big new species. So she agrees. Then we cut to the villains and what they're doing. Evox is talking about how he's finally back to full strength. He is very happy with Blaze for being the guy to give him the Morphex to make sure that he's back to full strength. And he actually uh, chastises his other crew. He talks down to Roxy. Why can't you be more like Blaze? And he talks down to Scruzzle. Why can't you be more like Blaze? Even though Scruzzle mentions that he's making a Giga Drone specifically for Evox to use now that he's all big and powerful. So uh, Roboroxy is on this path of trying to become stronger so that she can finally beat the Rangers and finally one up Blaze and get favor with Evox. Um, while that's happening, Zoe, she's going to be clean. She wants to clean up the fossil so that they can scan it better. But instead of putting cleaning solution into a tub, she puts acid into it and destroys the fossil. And she doesn't know what to do. Oh my god, I can't believe this happened. And then, so she goes to tell Mike. She's like, I'm really sorry. Uh, the fossil got destroyed. It was an accident. It was totally my fault. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, and by the way, Mike really wanted this fossil so that he can get a scholarship for college. Now I don't know if this is a scholarship for like for him like getting into college, because they mentioned a couple of episodes ago that he was already in college, and it wouldn't make sense that he would still get a scholarship or be looking for scholarships while still in college. College is expensive, and especially like of course the Reeves family, I think, understands the value of the dollar, the almighty dollar. But that's neither here nor there. Um, so Mike is really sad. He's not angry with Zoe though, which I think is an interesting note. He could be, but he's not. He's like, oh, so don't worry about it. I just got to figure out what I'm going to do now because I've got my scholarship interview tomorrow. I told them about the fossil. We don't have the fossil. What are we going to? What am I going to do? But it's okay. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. Is what he says basically. He's already got a broken arm, so I doubt he can climb that mountain again. Um, Robbie comes in. He's like, "Hey, what happened?" And Zoe tells him, and he's like, "Well, I mean, I was going to work out, but if you want me to help you, I could do that. We can do stuff together." And Zoe's like, "No, it's fine. I did it. I'll take care of this myself." Um, by the way, while during the scene where Zoe destroys the fossil in acid or dissolves the fossil in acid, Jax is getting maintenance done. So throughout this episode, or through most of this episode, Zoe doesn't have access to the copter, to her chopper Zord. So the next time we see her, she's actually climbing the mountain. Very dangerous. Her brother got injured, but she's still climbing the mountain trying to figure things out. Um, and what's worse is that apparently, while uh, while Mike wasn't sure whether or not this was an actual while Mike wasn't sure whether this was an actual new species of dinosaurs, that didn't stop him from, of course, telling his mother, probably, because the next thing that we see is that Roxy has found in the paper that Zoe's brother Mike has discovered this brand new fossil, and she thinks that if she scans it with the DNA scanner that she still has, that she can gain the power of a dinosaur, which is pretty cool. Um, sorry about that. And so Zoe's climbing the mountain. She gets up on top. She finds the dig site but of course, Roxy's there to meet her. Robo Roxy's there to meet her. And what happens next is that the Rangers, the other Rangers, meanwhile, they again find the newspaper article, and sorry about that. My computer is loud. Um, Took a while to get it set up, but I wanted to make sure that I actually started this thing on time because my computer is a piece of garbage. Things were going to be late. Either way, so back to the show. The other Rangers are busy. They're trying to, they, they're, or Nate has gotten Jack's done with his maintenance. He says he's all ready to go. It's super excited. And then Devin comes in and tells the others that, oh my gosh, did you guys see that Zoe's brother, he found a fossil and it was on this peak? Oh my God. Um, and then it clicks for Robbie because he's like, wait a minute. She said she destroyed the fossil and she's going to fix it. So she's probably up there going to get another one. We got to go help her because it's really dangerous. So as soon as Roborox attacks, the other Rangers show up to basically give her backup. They show up from the Chopper Zord, attack. It's all great. And then but of course, during the whole commotion, that Roboroxy ends up retreating. She did manage to scan the fossil before she left, so of course she upgrades herself with the regenerator that Scruzzle has. But the upgrade is so powerful that it actually destroys the machine, which means that these are the last bodies that Blazebot and Roborox have. So if the Rangers destroy them, that's it. They're done for. Um, but don't need to worry about that anymore. Zoe goes to her brother, says, "Here's the fossil. Everything's good." Blah blah blah. And that was of course before Roborox is sent out to attack the Rangers again. Evox sends her with Blazebot to kind of give her some backup. Fight ensues. Devin, of course, goes on one-on-one with Blazebot. Um, the other Rangers, they're fighting against Roborox, and then she just grows giant by herself. So they call on the Ultra Zord, and pretty tough battle, at least a little bit, until they just take her down. So they're able to beat her. They're able to destroy her. Um, And of course, Blazebot is totally broken up about this. Scruzzle shows up. He's very broken up about this, but he like blames Blazebot for it. He's like, "Why couldn't you save her? You know that since we don't have the Rejuvenator anymore or Regenerator, I can't make another one." And Devin overhears that, and so he tells the others like, "Oh, Roboroxy, that's it. You guys defeated the last one." Um, then Mike comes back and he says he's got the scholarship, so it's all happy and fun. Devin, meanwhile, says he finally got his food, so he's about to chow down. Ben and Betty come in. They have been dog sitting for their dad through this entire episode. Um, and this is when we get to one of the weirder parts of this episode. I really like this episode and how well written it is up until this moment. So uh, they're talking about how well trained the dog is. The dog manages to get out of the carrier that it's in, walks right up to Devin and grabs his hot dog. And of course, Devin, as we've established, freezes up when he sees a dog. So he just reacts and he's frozen. The dog just takes his food, takes the hot dog. As soon as the dog gets back in the kennel, Devin unfreezes and he tells Ben and Betty, "Oh my God, the dog took my food. What happened?" And at first they don't believe him, and then they look inside. They look inside the carrier, and they see the dog putting ketchup on the hot dog like a person. This is just a thing that's happening. And then of course he looks, and they're confused, and then he looks at them and he points the ketchup bottle at them, and he sprays them with the ketchup bottle, and that's the end of the episode. much like the random musical sequence that happened in the Silver Switch episode, where um, Steel finally experiences what it's like to be human uh, after switching bodies with Nate. This is a thing that is way too cartoony for the type of show that this is, especially when we get later down the line and other things happen that tie this show with a different show. It's just weird. It's weird to see something like this happen. I'm not exactly sure like why this is a thing. Why we established in the main Power Rangers universe that this is a thing that can happen. Like robots, I get it. That's fine. I've made my peace with how people can just make robots and they're just walking around. It's not a big deal anymore because, of course, people have seen 4 years or 4 decades at this point, giant monsters fighting giant robots every week. So I made my peace with that. But an actual, just a dog, just a regular dog. They don't talk about genetic experiments or anything. They do mention that he's had military training, but I don't know if that uh if they mean like testing, like animal testing, because I dogs shouldn't be able to do that. So it's just weird to see because nothing this weird has ever happened, or nothing this weird consecutive. These weird moments are solely for this show. Nothing that weird happened in Dino Charge, and I realize that's a different universe, but whatever. Nothing that weird even happened in Megaforce, so it's a very bizarre thing to say. But of course, we'll talk about more on that when we get to the big twist. And if you guys know what the thumbnail of this video means, then you might have already guessed what that is. But either way, so the next episode is where we're kind of getting to the end, of course, because we did kill Roborox in this episode. That was the big major plot point of this episode. Next episode is what is the next one called? Let me check the old notes here. Oh yeah, the next episode is called Crunch Time. So this um, episode opens. Blaze comes into the Riptide. He kind of goes up to the other Rangers and he's like, "Hey," and Devin's confused because he's like, "Aren't you supposed to be in Japan for a karate tournament?" Blaze says, "Oh yeah, I was, but on my way to the airport, I found this thing." And he gives it to the Rangers, and it is a big piece of machinery that Nate says is the memory core for Roborox. Uh, so the other Rangers figure that this must have been left from the debris that from the Roborox explosion that the rest of that the Grid Battle Force cleanup crew couldn't actually get to this. Here's to have somebody watching. Hello, person. Um, Yeah, if you're just joining, I'm talking about the last few episodes of Power Rangers Beast Morphers. This is episode 20. Um, I just looked at the title of this. What is this? Source or no. Source code is the next one. This is what is this one? Come on, Crunch Time. Crunch Time. See, this is a very weird episode. But either way, so they decide they're going to take the memory core back to GB. Um, Steele and Nate are analyzing it. Devin's also there. The other Rangers are busy making sure that there's no other tech from Roxy's that they can, that they need to pick up or look at or whatever. While they're looking at that, Devin or Nate plays a video clip from her memory banks, from Roborox's memory banks, and it is the scene in the last episode where uh, Scruzzle is telling Evox about the Gigadrone that he's making for it. And so they know that Evox is coming in for a big final attack. Um, and so, but then Devin gets called about a Robotron. So of course he leaves. He says, "Nate and Steel, you stay here. I'm gonna go fight this Robotron. I'll tell Ravi and Zoe on the way." Of course, Ravi and Zoe make it there first, meet up with the Robotron first, but they get in this more unmorphed fight. They're almost down for the count, but then Blaze comes in and he gives them a hand, and we actually get to see him fighting alongside Ravi and Zoe. Um, but of course, during the fight, Blaze hurts his arm, and then Devin comes in and he mentions that I'm sorry I'm late. Cruz got lost, as he has a penchant to do. But then of course it's Morphin time, and they take care of the Robotron pretty quickly. After the fights, Blaze gets mad at Cruz. He's like, why did you make Devin late? That could have been very dangerous. I got hurt. Somebody could have gotten seriously injured." And Cruz is like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean for it." And Devin's like, "Well, it's not a big deal. Everything got taken care of, so we're fine." But then Blaze pulls him aside and says, "You need to be a stronger leader. You need to make sure that you don't tolerate mistakes like this, because that's how you lead a team. That's how they taught us how to lead a team when I was training to be a Red Ranger." I have no idea if that's true, by the way, when we get to the end of this episode. You guys will understand that. But if you guys haven't seen it in a while, I don't know if you guys have watched this. But either way, um, so they go back to GB, or so Devin tells the team that he's not going to tolerate any more mistakes, and he yells at Cruz, and Cruz is like, "I'm sorry." They go, and Devin and Blaze go back to GB to do some training. So they're doing some sparring, or I guess sparring. Blaze has got those padded gloves on. It's kind of just blocking hits from Devin. And of course, the whole time, Blaze is telling Devin to be more aggressive. You can't hold back. You can't hold back. We're trying to fight against Evox here. Come on, give it to me. Um, After they get done with that, Blaze goes into the briefing room with Devin. Nate has gathered up everybody for his mission plan on how to handle the situation with Evox having a Gigadrone. And Blaze immediately looks at the plan and he's like, "This isn't going to work. What we should do is we should force Evox's Gigadrone into one of those Zord hangers that we have free, and we trap him there, and we transport Evox into a cell that he can't get out of in Grid Battle Force." And they think it's a really bad idea. Cruz in particular says it's really dangerous to fight in such close quarters, could be dangerous for the Beast Bots. Blaze immediately shuts him down, says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't, you shouldn't be telling me what to do when you can't even get Devin to a fight." And Devin's like, "Well, I mean, Blaze does have a good idea. I think it's a good idea, but of course, you know, it all the time. Devin has made these team decisions, but of course, Nate is like, 'Well, you're the leader, Devin, so tell us what to do.'" And so Devin says, "Okay, we'll go with Blaze's plan because we need to do something drastic in order to take down Evox." And Cruz leaves. He's all sad. And Zoe and Ravi immediately call out Blaze, like, "Why do you have to be so mean to him?" He's like, "I'm sorry that I hurt his feelings, but I'm trying to take down Evox here." They get into this big argument, um, which is a really good scene. And Devin kind of makes sure everybody's got a cool head. And then we cut to the fortress, where Scruzzle is watching the footage of Railtron being destroyed. He's like, "Oh my god, they took down our Robotron. It was supposed to be taken care of already, or he was supposed to be distracting them until 2:30. I thought trains were supposed to be on time." Evox isn't too worried about it though. He says, "My plan is working perfectly. Pretty soon I won't have to hold all these secrets in. I can let them out." And Scruzzle's like, "What secrets are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, Scruzzle, I have a very dark past." Um, so Nate makes this cell that can hold Evox, It's like a giant square, or like a square without walls, but as soon as you walk into it, you can activate the walls, and it activates force fields, and nobody can get out. Um, we get to see him where as soon as Nate has it set up, he leaves Ben and Betty, and they kind of they kind of go into it and pretend to be Evox. And the janitor turns on the cell by mistake, and uh, they can't get out. And they actually call weapons. They yell transport, and they call on blasters and shoot them. But of course, it doesn't work. Do you think this would bother Blaze? But of course, he's just happy that the force fields work. And then they get the Gigadrone detection alarm that says that Blaze is being, or that Evox is attacking the city, or that the Gigadrone is on the way. The Omega drone, as Evox calls it. So the Rangers show up in their Ultra Zord. They're ready for the fight, and they fight the Omega drone. They get it into the Zord hangar. They go inside, but of course with such close quarters, they can't really attack it. So as they're trying to hold this thing off, the Zord systems keep overheating, and Crew says he's running out of power. He starts to malfunction, and then just the Gigadrone itself overheats, and that thing explodes. So the Zords are damaged. Cruz is damaged. He's very hurt. So, of course, Devin's all broken up about it. He's like, "I'm sorry. You tried to warn me that this stuff was going to happen." Blah blah blah. And he's like, "To get better, buddy," as he's being taken away for maintenance. I'm assuming. And then Evox crawls out of the debris. He's like, "You're going to pay for destroying my Gigadrone." The Rangers hold him off until they can get the transporters, and then he's teleported into the cell. So they're happy that they finally got Evox. So the plan worked. But of course, Cruz is all broken up and whatever. Blaze is saying that he's still happy that the plan worked, even though he hurt Cruz's feelings. And then that's the breaking point for Devin. He's like, you don't have to be such a jerk to everybody. And by the way, the characterization on this is so good because in this scene, of course, Devin calls out Blaze, says, you don't have to be so mean. Cruz is more than a robot. He's my friend. I should have stood up for him back there. I was so caught up on trying to be a leader like you wanted that I didn't think about what was best for the team. So guys, I'm sorry about that. And of course, Blaze, still being a jerk, is like, hey, you know what? I'm sorry too. I'm sorry that my plan worked and that we have captured Evox. But before Devin can really get into it with him, he gets a call from Blaze, who apparently is still in Japan and has won his karate tournament, and he has a trophy. Which means that the Blaze that they've been interacting with this whole time is actually BlazeBot. And they take the patch that's off his arm, and they see all the circuitry, and he teleports away. And they realize that they've been had. And the characterization is really good here because Blaze was introduced to us, the audience, in the first episode of this show of season 1, as being this really, jerky character, and you kind of get snippets as to why he would act like this. This isn't too far from his personality, so it does work. You don't really see that it would be Blaze, that it would be the robot version of Blaze or the bad version of Blaze. And it's a really good scene. I had mentioned at the beginning of this season of season 2 when BlazeBot and Roborox came back and Blaze and Roxy were still running around, that scenes like this, that ideas like this are so good that they could utilize these types of ideas, and they just haven't done it for a majority of the show's run right up until we get to the end. So of course Blaze teleports away, and the Rangers realize that Evox wanted to be captured, but they don't know why. This, of course, leads to our next episode, 2-part finale, source code. Nate has made a weapon that would be able to destroy Evox by attacking the computer virus. So he goes up to him, opens the cell, fires. He gets hurt, but he's not dead. He hits him again. He gets hurt. Still not dead. While this is happening, while he's shooting Evox, Evox is actually sending code through the floor and getting into the computer system so he can take control of GB, and he takes control of the shields for the cell, and he activates them like when Nate tries to hit him a third time. And then so they finally realize what's happening. They destroy the computer, but of course Evox teleports into the computer and teleports away into the system. So they chase him down up until he gets to the vault with all of the with where Nate has all the Ranger tech. He pulls out the case for the RPM cell shift morphers, and he says, and he downloads code from the morpher. So way back at the end of Power Rangers RPM, there's a tease. Literally, like one of the last shots when the shell shift morphers are put back into the case, and everybody's like, "We're no longer Rangers anymore. We did it. Everybody's good." You see the red light flashing that signals that Venjix is still inside the morpher, and that's the code that Evox downloads. And they're trying to figure out why would even, and Nate is trying to figure out why he would even do that. But then he fires the gun again, and Evox is able to stop it this time, and he reveals that he is the Venjix virus. That while Nate was testing the Morphex on the different morphers years ago, like when he was still a child, which had to have been either during Megaforce or post Megaforce, so like 2015. When did the show end? 21. So 6-7 years ago. That probably 7 actually, because they don't use the Megaforce morphers, the actual Gosei morphers, during the Super Megaforce. But while he was testing the morphers, he tested the he put Morphex into, or he put Morphex and he put Morphex and snake DNA into the cell shift morpher, and it created the Evox virus, and it caused it to go into the computer system, where he just waited until the Morphex system, the Morphin Grid Morphex system was well built and the towers were built, so he can enact his final revenge and take over this world, since he failed at taking over Corinth. That is massive. That's a huge deal. And you know what, man? The fact that this finale is now related to one of the best seasons of RPM. I don't think it's the best, but it is really good. It's definitely not my favorite, but it is a really good show. But I think tying this into that automatically makes this better. And I'll get a little bit further into that when we talk about what happens in the next episode. But so the entire thing that happens in this episode is that Evox reveals that he's Venjix. He lays it all out there, tells Nate that this is all his fault. Nate is really broken up about this. He doesn't want to do anything in a fear of making the situation worse by making more mistakes. So Zoe calls in Dr. K, and we actually see Dr. K. She has a conversation with Nate, tells him about her experience, and she tells him, it doesn't matter how you feel, the world needs you. And that's a great idea. I can't believe that's such a great piece of writing. Like, that's so Dr. K. Of course she would say that. Like, it doesn't matter if you want to mope, fine. But you have to get to work, because this thing is really dangerous. The world needs you. It doesn't matter how you feel about it. The world needs you. And so that convinces Nate to make this antivirus of Evox slash Venjix with Dr. K. Um, so she makes and they make the antivirus. They infuse it into the Beast X King bow, and we get a really funny moment when the Rangers are called to deal with Blaze again. Uh, the Ranger or Nate goes off, and Dr. K is still working on the antivirus. We get a really funny moment with Ben and Betty where they try to see what they can do to help. And Dr. K says, "Oh, you know what you guys can do for me? You can make fuel, which is basically just tea, which is great. It's just a great the way she scientifically explains like what she needs and how they really take it down and they really try to do it. We actually see them give her the tea later, and they're when they actually find out it's tea, Ben is really broken. Is just like, do you realize how long this took? Like, I just love it. The interaction is so great. Dr. K plays really well off of Ben and Betty. And actually, when we get to the end of the show, we actually find out that more of the RPM cast actually work really well with Betty or with Ben and Betty. So what happens next here? Oh yeah. Sorry, I didn't take notes for this episode because not a whole lot happens. Of course, they take on Blaze. They're finally able to defeat Blaze, or they during the fight with BlazeBot, they get a message that the antivirus is ready. So they decide to do a field test and shoot it at Blaze. It blows up. He's dead. So that's the end of Blaze. That's the end of BlazeBot, and um, we get to so yeah, in terms of like the plot, this it says a huge major bomb dropped on us, but not a whole lot happens in terms of like actually moving the story forward. Most of that is because Nate spends a good majority of the time just moping around. Um, but of course, you know, when they have everything ready, they ask Dr. K if she wants to stay. She says no. She has to get back to Corinth and make sure that Evox didn't somehow get there or isn't still over there, because if he's here, he might still be over there. Um, so, of course, she leaves, and we're finally going into the last episode, Evox Unleashed. So, what happens in this episode? Sorry, it was. Uh, oh, yeah. So, actually, in the source code episode, so they needed to stop BlazeBot because he was going to go into the Morphex Tower that they have in Coral Harbor and take hold of the entire Morphex network for Evox. But the Rangers stop him and they destroy him. But as soon as they get their victory and they're all really happy, as soon as Dr. K leaves, uh, Evox takes control of the towers, and he reveals that while the Rangers were busy fighting Blaze, that they forgot completely about Scruzzle. So he actually snuck in after the Rangers had been hip deep in battle. So now Evox has control of all of the Morphex towers. So we actually open the finale with everybody evacuating Coral Harbor because they actually record a emergency message. Reporter Reeves and Mayor Daniels say that you need to get as far away from the Morphex Tower as possible because we don't know what's going to happen now that Evox has control over it. Of course, after they're done taping, Reporter Reeves goes to Commander Shaw and she's like, "Hey, look, I know I'm going to leave Coral Harbor, but my daughter, she works in laundry. Could she come with me because this is really dangerous?" And Shaw's like, "Well, we kind of need your daughter. She's very important to this mission." And that confuses Reeves because she's like, "What? She's in laundry? How important could she be? I'm really worried about her. I want to tell her that I love her. Can I at least see her before I go? Because I just can't stop worrying about this scene is actually really well done. This forces Zoe to say like you don't have to, and she takes off her helmet, and because the Rangers in the air message, sorry, water. So the Rangers in the emergency message, uh, actually, it said that they're going to stay and defend the city, defend their home. So the Rangers are there. They're morphed and they're ready. So when Reeves kind of bears her soul out, Zoe actually takes off her helmet and reveals her identity to her mother. And she's like, I can't believe it. I'm so proud of you. I guess I'll leave you to do your work. And it's so good. It's really good. Um, so what happens next here? Sorry, there's a lot. I wrote down a lot of notes for this episode specifically because so much happens. Um, so yeah, after they hug, the Rangers are sent out to deal with Evox. They attack. They actually use legendary weapons. They call on like past weapons from past seasons. Um, Delta Enforcer is my favorite one that Robbie pulls out. I like that one because I really like SBD SWAT mode, man. Um, and so they're holding off Evox. They finally get into a place where they can fire their antivirus arrow at him, but he just bats that thing away. Says it's not going to work. I'm become too powerful now. You guys can't stop me. And then he creates Robotrons that just attack the Rangers. And he's going to the tower, the Morphex tower, so he can get into the energy field that Devin was in during grid connection when he was sending out the distress call through the Morphin grid. But Evox is going in there so he can actually take control of the Morphin grid, and draw on its power. So Evox goes over there, and the Rangers are busy fighting the Robotrons. During the fight, Steel grabs the arrow that's still on the ground. He's like, "Hey, we can still use this. I'm gonna go after Evox." So he runs uh, to the tower, and he goes up to Evox, who's got his back to him, and he just stabs him right in the back with that arrow, and it works. And he's totally down for the count. But of course, Evox he turns right around, says he's too powerful now. So Evox is hurt by the arrow, but right at this point, the Rangers can't stop him. While this is happening, of course, the Rangers are able to take down the Robotrons, or maybe take them away. I guess I don't know. It seems really weird to me that they were able to take down 4 Robotrons or 5 Robotrons by themselves when they've spent all season having to fight just one at a time. It just seems weird to me. But either way, after the Robotrons are defeated, I guess the Rangers go off, and Nate's really like, we have to go help Steel. He's going up against Evox alone. We got to go help him. So the Rangers actually go into the tower, and they see, of course, Steel stabs Evox, and they're like, yeah. But then Evox turns around. He literally blasts Steel and just shoots all kinds of lasers at him, and Steel and morphs, and he disintegrates. He is killed in the line of duty. We lost another one. So many fucking robots die on this show, I swear. So Steel is dead. The Rangers are blown out of the other Rangers are blown out of the Morphex tower. So they're trying to figure out what to do. Nate is he's just like, we have to stop Evox. I can't believe it. He wants to keep fighting, but everybody else is like, we need to get back to base. We need to regroup. This is not a good thing. We can't just go in there half-cocked. This is a very bad idea. So they get back to the base, and Nate's like full-on crying. He's so fucking distraught over this whole thing. And Ben and Betty are like, hey, guys, where's Steel? And Devin's like, he's not coming back, man. And it's so very like heartbreaking. They realize the situation. Devin takes the, I guess, announcement speaker from Commander Shaw, and he gives the boom SPD speech, is what I like to call it, where he's like, look, man, we just like we 5 Rangers went to take on Evox, only 4 came back. We're gonna stay to fight Evox, but you guys can go. Like I'm not gonna fault you, Grid Battle Force being evacuated, but we are gonna stay. We need to hold off this evil. And everybody's like, I'm staying. So everybody decides that they're gonna stay. Evox transforms the tower into a gigantic Gigadrone. The Rangers go up in their Ultrazord to fight this thing, and they're trying to fight it off, and of course it's not going well. But then while they're talking, they're trying to figure out what to do. Uh, Nate realizes that the only time, or that when you guys remember when Evox tried to take over Steel's body, that Steel was able to reject it because of his human DNA. And then Devin remembers that when his father was possessed by Evox, that Evox was very weak after that whole thing. So Evox's weakness is human DNA. And so they decide that the best way to handle this situation, or the way they can take this guy down, is they're going to run Morphex through their human DNA and fight this thing. If it sounds incredibly dangerous, that's because it is. They could very well die. But I'm sure that following Steele's example, they're like, this is the Ranger way. This is how we're going to go out. It's fine. I'll talk about this a little bit later. Um, so they attack, and they're able to finally take down Evox using. Oh yeah, and by the way, after the big reveal of Evox being Venjix, he starts using the Venjix voice. It kind of works, kind of doesn't. It's a little bit weaker near the end, but either way. So Evox is finally destroyed. The particles from the Morphex are going back into the Morphin grid. While that's happening, the Rangers are kind of surveying the battlefield after the fight. They see that Steel's body is being reincorporated back into physical form. And then he turns, but then right before he goes back to normal, he turns human. So not only did Steel survive or get rescued, I guess, by the Morphin Grid, but he also got turned human. Now here's the thing. I don't think there's a cop-out ending, because I thought about this for a really long time after I saw this episode the first time. And I did mention this in the Q&A, but I do think this is worth mentioning, because in the very first episode of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the 3 rules are laid out by Zordon. And Zordon says, and what are the 3 rules? Of course, says never use your powers for personal gain. 2, never escalate a battle unless the enemy forces you to. And 3, keep your identities a secret. No one must know you're a Power Ranger. And before he lays out these rules, Zordon says, lose the protection of the power. Now, what does that mean? Only a few select Rangers have died in the course of this show. So, in the first instance, we have Kendrix Morgan. She is killed in the line of duty she's killed in the line of duty after she destroys the Dark Saber to save, I think it's the Dark Saber. I've been watching too much Mandalorian. But she destroys the Dark Saber, we'll call it that, to save Cassie. Thing explodes, she's dead. But, importantly, her spirit goes into the Quasar Saber, and it stays there for the majority of the show, or at least it goes off until she gives it to Corone, and then her spirit goes off somewhere else. We don't actually see her again until the end of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, when they all put their sabers back into the stone to revive the planet, and Kendrix returns. And she's like, I wondered how long you would make it here. So, She very was clearly saved by the protection of the power. And very importantly for that show, their identities were remained secret. Nobody knew who the Power Rangers were in that show. For a long time, the Rangers' identities have been kept secret. The only season the season where they started breaking that rule was in Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, which is immediately after this. So through the entirety of the first 7 years, nobody had their identities outed. Next one is Wes Collins, or sorry, no, not Wes, Alex Collins, I guess. Uh, in the first episode of Power Rangers Time Force, he is killed by Rancic in the very first episode of the show. He is struck down in cold blood. His case is very different. He survives. He survives because of the time travel shenanigans that happen on the show. So, of course, he wasn't protected by the power. He was very well dead. The only reason that he was saved is because time travel shenanigans have changed time, and so that's how he survived. So he's an anomaly. And then, the next person we lose, and this is very much in a flashback, but it's very important, is SPD when Blue Ranger Sky Tate reveals that his father, the Red Ranger, who was actually wearing the Red Time Force uniform, was killed in the line of duty. Now that guy never comes back. The whole point of SPD is that it's a task force. Everybody knows who their identities are. So they're already breaking that rule. So the one Ranger death that we have in this show, the one substantial one, is when people knew the identities of these Rangers. Now, Grid Battle Force, for better or worse, and how they've illustrated this is very poor in my mind, or in my opinion. But they've illustrated very matter-of-factly that they don't want the public to know who they are. The Rangers' identities must remain secret. So, just like with Kendricks, when when Steel is struck down by Evox, and the Morphin Grid is right there, he is saved because of the protection of the power. And of course, why he becomes human, I'm assuming just because the Morphin Grid has the power to do that. We'll get more into the Morphin Grid, I'm sure, when we get into the next season, Dino Fury. You can join me for those episodes. Those are going to be fun. Might watch those tomorrow. We'll see what happens. Tomorrow's live stream is actually going to be not Ranger related, but we'll see. We'll see what we can talk about here. But so Steel's back. He's human. Everybody's happy, and then we get a 1-year time jump. And when we get back from the 1-year time jump, Scruzzle has been captured. With Colonel Truman. Colonel Truman is there with Ben and Betty as they walk Scruzzle into the command center of Grid Battle Force. And he says that he saw, or Truman says that he saw Scruzzle hiding out somewhere in Corinth. And so Ben and Betty were sent out to go retrieve Scruzzle. And he actually says that he had respect for Ben and Betty. So I'm actually thinking that there's an alternate version, or there's like deleted scenes of Ben and Betty interacting with the rest of the RPM cast, which just sounds like a fun idea because there's not a whole lot of levity in that show, especially from those people. Big thing that happens in this sequence, and the thing that threw me off initially, is that Devin is now the commander of Grid Battle Force. Now, this is a thing that BlazeBot mentioned to Devin when they still thought he was Blaze, when he was talking about how you shouldn't tolerate mistakes. When he gives him that little sidebar, he says You are a very good leader, Devin. You could even be the in charge of all the Grid Battle Force one day. But it just seems very weird. And the trajectory that Devin was going, Devin's character is kind of the one that got lost for me here with this finale because, like, we see uh, Ravi painting a portrait of Roxy with his mother, who also got promoted to general. So of course they need a new commander. It just seems weird. There's an allusion to Zoe getting into politics, actually becoming the new mayor of the city. So maybe that happens later on, but it doesn't happen right now. Um, so it's just very weird. He's like 17, 18. Well, we'll be generous to say 18. And just go from a year to he's commander of Grid Battle Force. It just seemed very bizarre. Um, so this is a thing I couldn't wrap my head around. It is a thing that's mentioned, but the trajectory of Devin's character, I suppose he just needed his father's approval, and we were kind of done with that. Devin's character was definitely his arc was completed at the end of last season. So really, what he does here, I don't know. It could still make sense, but I just think the timing is weird. That we get to Grid Battle Force a year later, and he's in charge of everything. It just seems bizarre. Also, I had this thought of like, wow, true Colonel Truman is still in charge of this task force. Like, wouldn't it be cool if that was Scott? Wouldn't it be cool if they actually got Ika Darville in there and he was reprising his role as Scott Truman, and he was actually the commander that brought Scruzzle back in? I realize they won't do it because Ika Darville actually mentioned that the reason you don't see his face in Clash of the Red Rangers is because they couldn't afford him. They couldn't actually pay his SAG fees. So they just got his voice. He kind of just snuck in there because he really wanted to do it. He really wanted to be involved, but they couldn't afford him, so he couldn't actually show his face. So I just think that was a weird missed opportunity. Maybe you could have done a body double, but that would have been really awkward. All the same, Colonel Truman again. Um, so as mentioned, we have uh, Roxy getting portrayed um, by Robbie and his mother. That's a really sweet moment. It's nice that she's finally getting on her son's hobbies. And it seems like he's teaching her because he says that, oh, you've gotten really good at this. I can't believe it. You're really good. And then we have Mayor Daniels shooting some kind of PSA, letting people know that Coral Harbor now runs on solar and wind energy. And uh, Zoe and Nate are there, and Zoe's like, "Yeah, we were finally going green for the betterment of humanity." I guess this whole experience made them realize how dangerous it was to try. Like they basically realized that Daniels was right. Mayor Daniels was right in the very first episode when he told Nate off, and he's like, hey, "Look, this is a very bad idea. We can't harness the energy of the Morphin Grid. It just paints a target right up on our backs." So they obviously just realized he was right, and they move on. They decided to use alternate energy sources to power the city. But Grid Battle Force is still there to make sure that everything works well and everything is safe. Um, they're all called, by the way. After every one of these scenes, the Rangers are called by Devin saying it's time. And then we cut to Steel, who's now human, and he is an actor. He's an actor doing his own stunts for this big action film. It's really fun. Um, and then he's called by Devin. He says, "Where's my stunt double?" And it turns out to be Blaze, which I think is a really fun idea. We really need to get more scenes of Steel interacting with other people because Steel interacting with anybody is just a great idea. But Steel says that he's got somewhere to be, so he calls on Blaze to do a scene for him while while he goes to take care of that. We actually get a morph sequence with Steel as he's running to go to where Devin is saying. And he shows up back to Grid Battle Force fully morphed. He says he's ready for action. But of course, he walks into this dark room and nobody's there and he doesn't know what's happening. And he takes off his helmet. And then all of a sudden, everybody shows up. It's a huge surprise party. It's a happy birthday. You're finally 1 year old, Steel. So we decided to throw you a party. They ask him to blow out his candles if he has a wish. And he says he doesn't need a wish because he's got everything he needs. And he blows out the candles anyway. And then they play the song, "It's Great to Be Human." And that's how the show ends. You know what, man? I really like the way this show ended for most characters. Well, okay, so the best ending that anybody got in the show is Steel. Because Steel is kind of that middle point, right? Because the entirety of RPM, the theme is the most imperfect human is better than the most perfect machine. And Steel is kind of the midpoint of that. He's human and robot. So actually tying this into RPM is really brilliant because it actually reinforces the idea that robots and humans can coexist, can interact, can actually live in harmony together. That's what Grid Battle Force represents. We did all those episodes talking about how robot racism and how robots are actual people and you need to respect them and you're actually my friend and I can't believe I put you in this situation. And so it's actually a really good idea. This is what the future is supposed to look like. So the fact that Steel, because he is the embodiment of that idea of where human and robot meets, he gets rewarded at the end for getting what he always wanted. And I love this touch, by the way. This is a great touch. During the birthday sequence, Steel actually takes a dab's icing and tastes it. And that's a thing that Steel has been talking about for episodes. Like for a very, very long time, Steel has been talking about wanting to be able to taste things. How it's very important to him. He wants to experience everything as a human. And the fact that he finally gets to at the end, it's really like when this show actually focuses on stuff, it's really good. So I actually think that Steel's arc ends better than anybody else. Robbie's arc ends okay. I think they kind of fumbled the ball last season and they didn't really use Roxy in the best way in terms of her and Roborox. I really think you should use like some kind of split screen, put them both on the same put them both in the same scene at the same time. I just think that kind of stuff would be really cool and have Robbie try to choose. I just think it's a really good idea. Um, but it never happened. The stuff never happens. But I think it's okay. Zoe going into politics, like she solves big problems. Sure, I can buy into that. I've already talked about Devin, and now that whole thing is weird. So yeah, where this show leaves most of its characters is kind of bizarre, but it was a very good idea to end with Blaze because it's not like Dino Charge where that show ended with they're in a dinosaur zoo. That's a huge leap, man. Like you can't just go in there say that dinosaurs have been here this whole time and leave it at that. You get we're good. Everything's fine. You can't do that. So I think this show actually ends better than most. I will say that like having this show tie into RPM, especially when it's still tied into the main Ranger series, like they're very continuity heavy, and to have stuff as random as Dog that applies his own ketchup to a hot dog, and random musical sequence that's entirely choreographed and sung and everything. I do think that stuff is weird, and I wonder if that stuff is going to get a little bit worse as we go along. Of course, our next move is to go into Power Rangers Dino Fury, so we'll see how that goes. But ultimately, I really like this show, man. I think that for Hasbro's first foray into Power Rangers, this is pretty good. A lot of my complaints for this show were kind of answered by the time we got because I don't know if you guys know about this, but Simon Bennett, who is now the current showrunner of this show of Power Rangers, revealed in a AMA that uh, while Saban no longer has ownership of Power Rangers, they are consulted on everything. So they have mandates for certain things. And a couple of those mandates are as follows. Got to make sure, and this is back in the Ninja Steel days. Good God. This show is much better than Ninja Steel, by the way. I knew I was forgetting something. I was like, this show can't be what follows Dino Thunder. Or Dino, yeah, Dino, or no, Dino Charge. Sorry. There's too many Dino shows. Um, But yeah, no, was talking particularly about Ninja Steel, that Victor and Monty had to be involved in every episode, and that they had to be doing something wacky, and this is the thing that really irritated me, that Hasbro has this mandate that says that they can't that these shows have to be as self-contained as possible. Like every episode has to be as self-contained as possible. That makes no sense to me. In the era of streaming, where you want to make sure that your story is constantly building on itself, and then maybe this changes now that Netflix has a hold of Dino Fury, but it just seems very odd to me. Oh, you frozen? Oh, okay. It just seems very odd to me that in this era of streaming, when serialized storytelling is now the popular idea, and the Power Rangers, when it actually can pull stuff like that off, can be really good. It just seems so weird to me that you would have a mandate like that. So we'll see if anything like that changes, but of course that'll be for when we get to Dino Fury at long last. I get to finally see this show that everybody's seen for the last 2 years, and we'll see if it's good, man. I'm really trying to get things ready. Um, Trying to decide if I should just watch the show and talk about it like this, or if I should just do live reaction. So you guys, you know what? You guys let me know. Let me know in the comments. See if you guys want me to. And I might actually just put a poll up, since I don't think many people are watching these things. But just my own peace of mind to make sure that I covered everything on this show in particular, because I actually really like Beast Morphers. I like Steel as a character. He they didn't fumble the ball like they did with Robo Knight. So yeah, that's what I think. But so we'll get into Dino Fury. We'll see how that show goes. Maybe I'll lose my mind, because the one thing that I've heard about this show is, or about Dino Fury, is that while the show is entertaining, the story goes nowhere. Like there's no plot, and that was during the first season. So I don't know if that's actually true. If I actually sit down and watch it, if there is a plot, if I try to follow something, if it actually makes sense, or you know, if we're still in this mandate of keep everything as singular as possible, make sure that nothing actually makes sense, because, or nothing actually leads to a logical conclusion, because we don't want things to build on themselves to make an actual finale, even though that's what the show is built on. I don't get it. Either way, so that's the end of my reviews for Power Rangers Beast Morphers. I'm really glad for everybody for sticking that out with me during all of this hard times, trying to get my computer ready, trying to make sure that everything is situated. So maybe when I get finally caught up with Dino Fury, and finally get caught up with when we actually do the Once and Always special live reaction, then I'll probably go back into actually doing these more scripted. I know that people don't like seeing my face. I actually did this years ago when I started the channel, so I know that people don't actually like looking at my face while I talk about these things. But for the interest of trying to save time, I'm trying to just speed run through this as quickly as possible. That's how we're going to go. Now, my next live stream, which will be tomorrow, is going to be actually not of Power Rangers. We're going to be talking about Ninjago Season 11. Lego Ninjago. So, because you know what, man, I finally bit the bullet. I finally sat down and watched the rest of season 1 for the new Ninjago show. And yeah, I have thoughts. It probably won't be as long as this one. Not going to really go up in too much of the big major plot points. Mostly because a lot of that stuff doesn't make any or doesn't really matter in the big grand scheme of things. But either way, we'll get into it. So hopefully you guys will join me there. Maybe I'll get more eyes on this, and we can actually have conversations. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you guys want me to do the Dino Fury episode reviews like this in this format, or if you want me to actually do like live reactions where you guys can actually see my face as I probably explodes while I'm trying to watch this crazy dino show. So yeah, well, we'll see. I'm excited and a little scared. So I'm Nick, aka Iron Man 1993. May the power protect you.